following is a Orion Sportscast production. Here are your hosts, Josh Egan, Brandon Waterhouse, and Jarek Moore.
And we're back, episode 2 of Orion On Ice. This will be a somewhat shorter episode, not too many hockey stories out there, but the ones that are out there are pretty big. Just a quick rundown of what we're doing today. We're talking some Jack Eichel, we're talking some Evander Kane, talking about the Blackhawks and Marc-Andre Flurry, John Tortorella, and then just some quick thoughts on free agency as that starts to slow down a little bit. So, boys, how are we doing today? How was everybody's day? Brendan, you got a story about a bear and your brother?
More like you have the story about my bear and my brother, but we're all good. I don't need to share too much information, but very important, boss / brother I needed to know about his whereabouts was concluded today. So.
Yeah.
He's home.
He's home safe. Jarek, how are you doing?
How about
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk hockey. We haven't talked hockey in a week. It's been a week, no hockey talk. We surviving.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
the real tragic, story of the day is pretty valuable loss on the Egan's end. Someone lost a ring cutting the lawn.
Yeah, rough start. Sorry,
Who was that?
I lost my wedding ring.
Oh my god. Oh my god. It's like day 2.
Don't get me started, man. I was so pissed off. Yeah.
Did you find it?
We think we found it.
We think.
Someone, a neighbor has said that we found a ring, but I'm like, what does it look like? And they go, it looks like a ring. And I'm just going to go around there and see it. Anyway, let's start with Jack Eichel, because Jack Eichel, I'm sure we all know the premise of it, but we just got some outlines here. He wants to have surgery to fix a herniated disc. And long story short, the Sabres don't want him to get the surgery, but he wants to get the surgery. And on Friday, his agents released a statement with some quotes saying the process that the Sabres are putting Jack through are stopping him from playing in the NHL. We fully anticipated that the trade was to be done by the start of the NHL free agency period, which it doesn't, and the process is not working. To which Kevin Adams, who is the GM of the Buffalo Sabres, responded by saying, we have control of this. We have a player under contract. And he also said he has no problem bringing Eichel back at the beginning of training camp, even though he has previously said he wants to build the team around players that want to play in Buffalo, which it appears to be Eichel doesn't want to be there anymore. It's kind of interesting because the NHLPA is most likely going to get involved pretty soon. Currently, via the collective bargaining agreement, the Sabres do have the final say, which is kind of weird that a team has the final say over a surgery a player wants. They did nix the artificial disc replacement, quoting that it had never been done on an NHL player before. They don't want to take the risk on their prized asset. So they said, you know what, you need to take 12 weeks rest. And after the agreed upon rehabilitation time ended in June of 2021, it was determined by the Sabres medical staff that a surgical procedure was required. The agent said our camp was initially under the impression that the Sabres specialist was in agreement with the artificial disc replacement surgery. That is no longer the case. If he was to have the surgery at the time that he wanted it to have it, he would have been ready for the start of the season. Eichel's agents have said repeated requests have been made to the Sabres since early June to no avail. One thing that people are taking out of this is that the Sabres want to trade Eichel first and then let the team that get him deal with the surgery, but it's interesting to see there. And then just the next step in this is that the medical dispute will now involve the NHL and the NHLPA, which under the collective bargaining agreement, the player may submit a complaint regarding a violation of the standard of care to the NHL Joint Health and Safety Committee, which pretty much goes to a hearing, and then a panel of experts would decide which it lands on. So boring details, but long story short, Jack Eichel wants the surgery. The Sabres won't let him have it, and been able to play, he has to have it. What do we think about this?
Well, if he wants to get traded, why do they care? So I'm just confused on why, if they're willing to let the other team deal with his injuries, why just not trade him then? Why is it such a fight to just finally just go to the trade?
Well, because for example, if I was to offer you, I'll give you this pencil for $1 or this broken pencil for 50 cents, I'm going to want the dollar. You don't want I want a high return and you want a full pencil, right? Jack Eichel is the pencil. You want a healthy player. the team wants to know that they're getting a healthy player, and the Sabres want maximum return for their prize asset, right? Like, you don't want to be playing through or trading for a guy with a herniated disc. Like, that's a tough injury to have. And I don't know if you can rehab a herniated disc. I've never heard of that before. I don't know if it,
I don't know about more than one doctor, but there's this one special surgeon's physician in the States who does a lot of player surgery. And he's always like the first call on high level athletes. And what's a second opinion and then a first opinion? He was on their list. I don't remember his name. I'm not going to act like I know him very much, but I know that he's done some of the most complicated. And there was an example they gave where a basketball team didn't want a player to have a surgery, and he had the surgery under the doctor and continued to play like 17 years, all-star caliber. So obviously I think that it's disgraceful that a human being can't be under the NHL, like how that's a rule, that he can't take care of his body how he deserves, that he thinks that it should be, especially whatever his camp feels is necessary. I think that with how little money the NHL makes in comparison to other professional sports, they need to be able to take care of their body.
I mean, Eichel's trying to take care of himself, but I guess the Sabres are trying to protect their assets. But I just think if Eichel has gotten second opinions, and even the Sabres doctors at one point said, yeah, he needs to have the surgery, then why has he not had the surgery? It doesn't make much sense to me. The Sabres just seem to keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Well,
right? Like, I don't get it.
What I've read from the surgery is the surgery would actually be better long-term for him than like I'm assuming they're going with the fusion route is what they want him to do.
Yeah.
But from what I've read about the surgery he wants to get, it actually would be better long-term for him. So if anything, like going back to that broken pencil thing, if he gets this surgery, then you're not necessarily trading a broken pencil anymore, because if it's more beneficial for him long-term, then I don't really see the I don't know, danger in acquiring him for high assets.
Yeah, and I think, I saw a lot of people comparing it to when McDavid hurt I think it was his PCL, and instead of surgery, he rehabbed it, and he came back actually stronger than he was. But that's a totally different thing. Like your PCL is your tendons and your muscles and your tissues, and then Eichel's a herniated disc in your spine, like that.
McDavid also didn't like. I agree with what you're saying about like the difference between a knee and a spine or a leg and a spine. But McDavid also didn't already miss a year, so he was coming off of little time missed to be ready for the next season. With Eichel, he's already missed so much time. So what's another year if he does end up missing another season, right? Like I feel like it's the same in a sense, but it's a little different because of the time already missed.
And that's the thing, and Brandon, you can attest to this because I know you kind of have the Sabres in your heart a little bit. The Sabres suck right now. Like Eichel's been there for 6 years, and they are terrible. I don't think they made the playoffs with him. I don't think he's played a playoff game.
No.
And they've seen no success. He's probably already unhappy there, and now they're telling him he can't get a surgery to make him feel better and play better. He's probably looking at this team next season saying, this sucks. I mean, one of the options I saw floating out there was if they tell him to report to camp and he doesn't report, then they'll suspend him. He's probably like, okay, fine.
Well, I don't really think he's necessarily in a position to not report to camp, because I was on Twitter the other day and I saw him. He was in Boston. He was practicing with a bunch of NHLers. So he's in skating shape. I don't know about game shape, but he's in skating shape practicing with other players, right? So I don't really think he's necessarily in a position to not report to camp.
Brendan, you might know more about this. Going to bring up your favorite player, Kawhi. When he was with the Spurs, I think it was before the Raptors got him. He had an injury, and the Spurs wanted him to play, but he felt like he couldn't play, so he kind of hid from the team doctors because he didn't want them to evaluate him and all that. And there was that story where the trainers came by and they opened the door, and he hid in the hotel bathroom or something because he didn't want the evaluation done on his knee. Is this kind of a similar situation?
Seems like it. I didn't know. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. Clearly, he was going out of his way. He was young back then, and it's interesting to know. Everyone labels Kawhi as like a robot, and you see him on the bench with some high-tech fusion wraps around his knees with buttons and knobs and different layers of electronics, almost fusing his knees together with batteries. Clearly, he knows himself and his own body, and I think a lot of athletes don't know their
Mhm.
bodies always more than another person does. I think it, it's really an enlightenment to the days. You're going to see a lot more of this, I think, from star athletes, especially those who hold their own payroll in high honor. They want to be able to prove that they're not just honestly a number, a piece of client to another
Well,
human.
and it's their job too, right? Like, how long does a professional athlete stay in their job? What are you looking at? Like, realistically, between 5 to 10 years. You very rarely see an average level NHL player more than 10 years. Football's even less. I'm not quite sure what you're looking at. Basketball, baseball's a little bit longer. So if you have a major injury
I
like
think I
this,
heard the average football NFL career is 3 to 4 years or something.
yeah, right. So NFL players, they want to stay healthy. Hockey players want to stay healthy. It's a contact sport. Whereas these GMs, they're sitting up in their office, the owners sitting up in their office. The owners own the teams. They can be there as long as they want. So Eichel's just trying to take care of himself. I hope it gets resolved. And honestly, I hope Jack Eichel, I want to see him back on the ice because he's a fantastic NHL player. And I don't think we're seeing his full potential here right now. So it'd be nice to see him back healthy and with a different team who's actually a contender. I just kind of
Yes.
hope they get it. They get that resolved. Moving on, we got Evander Kane. So this one's going to get a little bit weird. So just bear with me here. So on, I think it was June 30th of this year, obviously, um, Evander Kane's ex-wife, whose name I don't have right now, but it's coming up. I think it's Amanda, whatever it is.
Mrs. Kane.
Mrs. Kane put some stuff online that was kind of revealing, and I'm going to read it right here. So this is from her Instagram. So she posted this. So you leave on July 8th. You do not call or text at all for 7 days. Then you inform me you are going to Europe for vacation. That must be nice. But at the same time, you tell me our house is being taken by the bank. You do not come home to help your pregnant wife pack or help with anything at all. You have enough money to party and stay in hotels in Europe, go to dinners every night. But I can't buy my daughter formula, and you force me to sell my wedding ring to have any money to survive as you party every day, every night, never calling your daughter and never asking, not even one time, how I'm doing. She goes on to say like how he's an evil person walking around, saying that he's posting old photos to make it look like that he's home. And then she posted another thing, and this one kind of sent tremors through the NHL because of the new gambling partnerships they have and the history of Evander Kane and gambling. How does the NHL let a compulsive gambling addict still play when he's obviously throwing games with bookies to win money? Maybe somebody needs to address this. And then one more post at NHL. I don't know why she's tagging the NHL because the intern probably read this. Like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
It's not my job.
Yeah. Can someone ask Gary Bettman how they can let a player gamble on his own games, bet and win with bookies in his own games? So that's the first part. So I guess we'll take this part by part. When you guys saw this, what did you think about this? Because I don't know if I should have, but I instantly jumped to conclusions because of the history of Evander Kane, which was probably the wrong thing to do. But I was like, oh shit, Evander Kane's in hot water again, just based off his history. He filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He owes casinos money. He's posted those photos with, standing on balconies in Vegas with money and stuff. What did you guys think of this when that original part came out? Then we'll get to Kane's response.
Well, like yourself, I was like, again, I went right to the conclusion of, oh, it's Evander Kane. It's probably true. But then as I read further and further into the details, I read that they're going through a divorce.
Yeah.
So once I read that, I was like, maybe we should take this one in strides because it's a pretty messy situation for them. So I'm not too shocked that like major accusations are being thrown all over the place. But like, it's Evander Kane, so he doesn't really have a great history for me to be like, yep, he's innocent. Let's just move on. She's just throwing this at him because they're going through a rough time. But I don't know. It's absolutely messy. And like, she obviously tagged the NHL for a reason because it got their attention. So like they immediately released a statement saying that they're going to do an investigation about it. So
yeah, we'll get to that. Don't worry about that one. That one, that raised some questions.
You're right, Josh. Especially with we did another episode, I think, on Evander Kane about his bankruptcy. Obviously, when that filed, and this is obviously another eyebrow raiser. it's I think it's enlightening to have another side finally to it. Like it's not just a source saying that Evander Kane has done this and that, and they found it through his taxes or something like that. This is actually a real life individual partner, ex-partner of his coming to fruition and telling, bringing more light, I guess, to the situation. It's clearly a problem. I think it's interesting. We could go on about another Edmonton Oilers, Burlington boy situation. Posting photos when you're not in the place that you are.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hilarious situation when you boil down to the fact that you have to lie to people that you should love, and they should know about your whereabouts. It's obviously, I think it's more than hockey at this point if he's not helping his child or.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's two sides to this. Obviously, there's the family side, which we can't really speak on, but it's kind of the gambling side where he's betting on his own games and kind of it's the debts that he has where people are kind of raising questions. So he actually put out two statements. So the first one was, unfortunately, I would like to address the complete false accusations that my estranged wife and soon-to-be ex-wife have made against me. Even against the advice of my legal team, I feel strongly that the public and fans need to hear this directly from me. I have never gambled bet on hockey, never gambled bet on a Sharks game, and never gambled bet on any of my games, and I have never thrown a hockey game. The facts are I personally had my best season of my career last year, which was true, and was the most consistent I've been throughout any season, which also was true. I'm proud of that. I love the game of hockey, and I would never do any of what was alleged. I look forward to cooperating fully with the league's investigation, having my name cleared, and look forward to this upcoming season. He then also put out another statement. With recent allegations that my ex-wife chose to make public, I want to clarify. I quickly respond as follows. This is more about the family stuff, but he pretty much just goes on to say he loves his daughter. He always wants to FaceTime her. He's tried to de-escalate the divorce issues and be civil as calm. But he kind of just goes on to say that the mom's refusing to let him see his daughter, tried to use the daughter as leverage and all that. So we won't focus on that as much because that's his family stuff and we can't really comment on that, like I said earlier. So Evander Kane's denying it. The thing with this is I've heard on some shows, I've read some stuff, and my buddy's a lawyer, and he said usually with cases like this where a federal crime is involved, which this would be a federal crime, lawyers do advise you not to say anything until the case has been cleared. And because he said something, that can now be used in court. And if it's found to not be true, it would just add to the sentence. So him saying this kind of makes me think, you know what, maybe he isn't throwing games. Maybe he's not betting on his own games. But it's still a very interesting situation.
I mean, at the same time, he's not going to come out and be like, yep, I did it.
That's true as well. Like, he's not going
to imagine that.
Just tweets, you got me.
But I think that this is something that you don't see with hockey. You've seen this before, obviously, maybe gambling and tampering with the averages and sport numbers. And
you see it in soccer all the time.
Games. You see it. Remember when the NFL players would have like a clear path to the end zone and they'd take a knee at the 1 yard line because they knew that the over/under would be paid out differently?
Yep.
And there's players in the NBA who take shots just to get the score point above when the game's far away at the last couple of seconds. It's been shown. But those are things that are pretty obvious to track down. It's when the scores are so low in hockey, obviously trying
like, how do you throw a game? Like, how do you throw a hockey game?
Almost like he would have 3 to 5 highlights of putting the puck in his own net if that was the case or something like that.
Unless he was betting on like personal stats, like, oh, I got to get 5 turnovers tonight so I can turn my $20 into 50 grand. Like,
and that's what me and my boss were talking about today.
Much of a crowd for Evander Kane betting and Evander Kane lines? Like, no, it can't be that much of a, like, I don't give a fuck about Evander Kane.
Yeah, so because there's money involved with this and the NHL's all about money and they don't actually really care about the players or anything like that, they immediately jumped on this, like within 12 hours of all this breaking, with 2 tweets. This is from @PR_NHL. The league was made aware this evening of a post on social media alleging that San Jose Sharks player Evander Kane bet on NHL games. The integrity of our game is paramount, and the league takes these allegations very seriously. We intend to conduct a full investigation and will have no further comment on this at the time. So the first thing that jumps into my head where it says, oh no, one of your partnerships with your gambling partners, which was going to bring you in a lot of revenue next year, is at risk. You immediately put out a statement about this, but you say jack shit about the Chicago Blackhawks situation. That's what I jumped to.
I got a question for both of you.
Yeah.
The fact that he is like obviously not the fact that he's saying, but like the fact that he had one of his best seasons in his NHL career, does that go for him or does that go against him?
I just think he had a
In
good
terms
season.
of in terms of what the allegations.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's the first thing I thought of when Josh mentioned every time something that was against Evander Kane, Josh was like, which was true, and which was the fact that he had a productive, consistent season, which is actually something that's news to me. And I think that for him to have that season, that's also coming out after the season, right? Before the season, he also went into that like almost broke, like nothing in his to his name, and everything was getting evicted. Obviously, that news broke before the season, so to say that he would intentionally still went out there and tried to dig his money back out by throwing stat lines, if not, or even betting against himself. Like when I guess if his ex said that she did that, he would throw games. I mean, he'd had a pretty productive season. Sure, the Sharks sucked, but I don't think that he would have had his teammates in on his own shambles. Like that's just the worst, and you don't do that to a professional organization. However, to your question, what was the exact question?
Does the fact that he had one of his best seasons, not only like statistically, but the fact that he was actually a pretty decent like defensive player, go against him in the allegations, or did they go for him in the allegations?
Yeah. See, I hope that on ice effect it will be only looked at slightly. I don't hope that that's not necessarily what's taken into the legal actions here. However,
Of course.
I would say that the only glimpse of looking at his statistics would be that they weren't the worst, and that would be probably the situation that would have our eyebrows raised even more. Is that if he had his career lowest season, and obviously the Sharks made no moves, but it doesn't hurt him. I would say that he had a productive season, as he probably needed to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find something, and I don't know how to view my liked posts on Instagram, so whatever. But um, it was just the history of stuff he's been through. Like he's had assault cases against him. He's had a couple other things. Obviously, he had the bankruptcy, so he does have a history. But something's missing in this case for me to fully say that he did it. And I guess the investigation will either clear him or he'll be in deep shit. So
I just don't understand how a hockey player can throw a hockey game. Like in so many other sports, I can see it, but how does one hockey player on a team of 18 skaters throw a hockey game?
It would have to be a goalie.
Exactly.
Which actually did happen in a Swedish league game.
Oh, wow.
There was an investigation.
I remember you brought that up.
I do. And I can't remember I think the team was down like 7-3 or something, and they lost 8-7 because the team switched goal. It was a weird situation. But it turned out that didn't happen. The goalie just sucked. So, yeah. But one last thing on this story, there was a report from The Athletic today that the Sharks did try to trade Kane back earlier in March to no avail because nobody wanted him, but his teammates also do not want him to come back. So we'll see where that goes. He's not a popular guy in the NHL, it sounds like.
What a mess.
Yeah. Speaking of messes, Chicago Blackhawks. It was announced, this story is slowly building up steam and getting worse and worse for the people involved. The Blackhawks will release the findings into the sexual assault investigation they're currently under. The findings are going to be released to the public, which is huge. And according to Nick Boynton, player on the team's new, most notably Patrick Sharp and Patrick Kane. So players, who are going to be interviewed, those will be made public. I don't know if this helps the case or makes it worse because I don't know if guys are going to want to say stuff knowing that it's going to be publicized. What do you guys think about that one?
I'll leave this one to Brandon.
You said that. Why did you mention Patrick Sharp and Kane's name again?
Because they knew about what was going on with the Blackhawks.
And the whole... I mean, obviously individualized. That needs to be addressed, and I guess I think we're all in agreement that it took too long to come to this point where the tweet was the first thing that was made when
11 years.
Yeah, like they dropped Jonathan Tavares' returning album before this or something.
Yeah,
like, it's a complete embarrassment. So yeah.
So Rick Westhead has done a really good job of covering this story, and he was able to. I think he sat down with Nick Boynton, or he was in the Zoom call where Boynton sat down with lawyers, and just some quotes from this. They asked me who knew, and I gave them their names. And I said, basically everybody on the team. I said, everybody fucking knew about it. I said, you can talk to the coaches. I called out Brian Campbell, and I said, Talk to Patrick Sharp, talk to Kaner. I'm sick of this wall of silence. Boynton told me he first learned of the abuse allegations from teammate Jake Dow. So he spoke to the former Chicago forward, Rick Westhead. Dow said to Westhead, "It's foggy to me. I remember after Brad was let go after 2010, we started to hear some rumblings, but I don't know how much truth there was to it." The lawyers with Jenner and Block, who are part of the investigation, have started interviews. Not all of the players from the 2009-2010 team have been contacted yet. At least one player and one coach from the team say they will not cooperate unless J&B promises in writing to publish it, which has been honored. And so people have been asking, like, how much will be told? Well, in 2018, New York lawyer Evan Krutoy was hired by the Dallas Mavericks to investigate misconduct allegations, and he pretty much said there's no template for disclosure. It's going to be interesting because in this investigation, Krutoy did 215 interviews and reviewed 1.6 million documents for his probe of the NBA team. And this is where it gets kind of messy for this. Why won't more Blackhawks players publicly discuss what they know? And that's because, hockey for the most part is a monoculture. Players dress the same, talk the same, they wear the same things, and they've never been encouraged to, kind of go away from the group. Brandon, we've been in a hockey room, everybody kind of acts the same. So this case is going to be interesting, and it really relies on people stepping forwards and saying the right thing and speaking up to what it is. And just to close out on this, there is no legal risk to current or former Blackhawks players in discussing their knowledge of the alleged abuse, but they will most likely face blowback from NHL and NHL teams. Players also don't have a legal duty to report and face a no liability, no risk plaintiff. So they're not on the hook for knowing stuff, but they would be on the hook if they did take part in it, which it sounds like some of the players did take part in, kind of like hazing things and slurs and all that. So it's not a fun story, but I think this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I guess you can only imagine it could be a distraction for the Blackhawks this season.
Oh, it's going to be a massive distraction. And like everybody involved, like we know Bergevin was involved, Cheveldayoff was involved, Joel Quenneville was involved, allegedly, to all those guys until it's proven guilty. But all those guys should be, if they were found to have covered it up or whatever, then they got to be gone from the league.
And I hate to say this kind of stuff, but I throw back to the first episode. Is this the reason why the Blackhawks have made so many big moves lately? Like, I'm not trying to say that they're trying to cover it up or anything, but like, it seems to me that they're trying to get the attention maybe away from this and back onto their on ice product.
That's exactly what they're doing.
It seems that way.
Don't you remember as a kid, like you would say you were supposed to, I don't know, put the dishes away or whatever, or, you break something and your parents come home and they say, "Oh, what'd you do today?" "Oh, I went to Timmy's house. I did this. I did that. I spilled ketchup on the couch. Oh, and I also did this and I did that." They're trying to cover it up. It's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, just deflect away from the situation.
Yeah, and one of the things they're doing to kind of deflect away from the situation is Marc-Andre Flurry has announced that he will play with the Blackhawks this season after apparently contemplating retirement. I think this is a smart move for Flurry, not to retire, because he's got 1 year left on his contract, and he's going to be the starter in Chicago. So this gives him a chance to make more money in his UFA next year, and it's going to be a better chance that he would have had in Vegas sharing the net with Robin Lehner. And I kind of want to talk about Vegas a little bit after we talk about Flurry, because I got something to say about Vegas.
Well, a guy like Flurry, he's 37 years old, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. So, like you said, I think it would have been a complete mistake for him to retire, because I feel like I might be crazy to say this, but I feel like he has a max 5 years left in his career. Like, I feel like he's the kind of guy who could play at maybe 42 years old and be a backup, if not a guy who can play 40 games a year.
He just won the Vezina too.
Exactly, and that leads into what you're going to say about Vegas, and I feel like you're going to be on the same side as me when it says that organization just seems like they're full of disrespect when it comes to the people who've done stuff for them.
They have 4 players left from their inaugural season,
and it's insane. Like you see what they did to Gerard Gallant. Like, they sent him packing in a cab. Or was that Florida? Was that Vegas or Florida?
That was Florida.
That was Florida. All right, either way, but it's just the way they fired Gallant after taking him to a Stanley Cup final. It's the goalie who took you to a Stanley Cup final. It's just, I don't know. It's just, it seems like that organization just doesn't really care, and they're just going to go in their direction of what they want to go.
It sounds like they're not popular throughout the league. It's a tough situation. My dog is barking. It's really distracting. But it's going to be, Vegas is one of those teams where players, I'm sure they would love to play in Vegas. But if management's a joke and not treating their players right, then they're not going to want to go there.
And I was reading that the owner didn't even want the trade to go through. He was pushing ownership or management to not actually trade Flurry. And he eventually just gave in and said, all right, do it if you guys wanted to do it. But I don't know. It's a messy situation. It's been a messy situation for Flurry ever since the board got there too.
Yeah. Vegas has got more turnover than a junior team, Brandon?
Yeah, well, they've been competitive every year, and a lot of those junior teams are like that as well.
That is true. John Tortorella, hired by ESPN and as an analyst. I didn't like this. I think it's an awful hiring. He's a terrible personality. He was constantly rude to the media this year when asked questions. He's very self-centered. I just thought there were so many young and up and coming talented people that could have done this job. And instead you bring in John Tortorella. Like, he's not popular on this show. So
no, I thought he was going to go off and start hammering nails in his home or something.
Well, I tweet from Sid Sixero today. I'm not a huge Sid Sixero fan, but he said that, like, yeah, good point. But he said that like for years and years and years that John Tortorella has been extremely rude to the media, and either they're going to turn around and hire him. Like, that's just, I don't know, that's just a bad look, and especially for ESPN with like they're kind of getting their restart into hockey, and it's just like you hire someone like John Tortorella. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's so many better options out there that aren't doing anything that you can bring in. Hell, Mike Babcock would be a better option than John Tortorella.
No.
It's been a long night.
I'm sticking to it.
It's gonna be the new coach's corner, John Tortorella and Mike Babcock. Oh God, that would
turn
be.
off TV.
I'd turn it off anyway. That would make me throw out my TV, I think.
Give them the 2 a.m. slot.
You're telling me you would really rather watch a show with John Tortorella than Mike Babcock?
I'd
rather watch nothing.
Well, that's not an option though. That's not.
It is though, because Brandon and I were saying this around the time Tim and Sid got switched over to Tim and Friends. I went on a rant and I was saying at intermission, I don't watch the TV. I take the dog down, I grab another beer, and I scroll Twitter to see what other people think of the game. I don't care what fucking whoever was on at intermission has to say. And it got a little bit better when they brought in some fresh faces and some more like guys who.
Kevin Bieksa and Chris Stewart were some of the best things to happen to.
Yes, Anthony Stewart and Kevin Bieksa are phenomenal, but like they're only on there Saturday nights.
I disagree with Anthony Stewart.
Anyway, what's going on the agenda? What?
But at least he's a person.
Kevin Bieksa is great.
Yeah.
Kevin Bieksa is amazing because he gives you that, like, I played the game view.
They both kind of like joked with each other, and it was two players out of all of these old book nerds.
But it doesn't have to be a player though. Right? Like,
that's why I enjoyed it.
Sometimes you do want the players, but people were like, "Oh, I want to see Sean Avery on there. I want to see Dan Carson." No, you don't. Sean Avery's a fucking moron, and you don't want to hear Daniel Carcillo talk about how he would just flip off the crowd in New York all the time. Like, I don't want to hear about the glory days from these guys. And then they were like, "Oh, well, what about some of the guys from Spit and Chicklets?" I mean, yeah, you could have them on, but the way they break down a game and analyze it, it's not what you want to hear at intermission. That's something you want to hear after the game at the bar.
I'm a huge Spit and Chicklets fan, but Spit and Chicklets is for something that, like, it's almost like if you don't want to take a serious take on hockey, that's what you go listen to. You go listen to Spit and Chicklets because they're going to give you a joke side of hockey, and they're going to still talk about what's going on. It's a joke side of hockey. If you want to listen to something serious, you go watch an ESPN show.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of hope ESPN makes some different hirings. All right, let's wrap it up with free agency. Jarek, you got a list of things, so fire them at us, and we'll give you a quick opinion on it.
All right, for July 31st, we got Derek Steffen going to the Hurricanes for 1 year at 1.3. We got Arturi Lehkonen re-signing with Montreal, 1 times 2.3. The other big signing of July 31st would be Nick Ritchie going to the Leafs, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah,
I feel like
that was a good signing.
it brings that heavy killer attitude that I feel like the Leafs are dying for. And I like this attitude that the Leafs are going with throughout free agency, that we didn't bring any big dogs in. We didn't bring any old veterans in. We're almost letting Marner and the Matthews figure it out. They're like, this is your team. Take it. And if we fail, then maybe we got to blow it up. But it's like, take it by the reins and let's go. For the 30th, we got the biggest signing of the day would be Andre Cash going to the Leafs, which is another good signing. And then for the 29th, the biggest signing of the day, in my opinion, is the Brandon Saad deal. I think that's a huge signing for the Blues. And I actually think that they're getting an improvement over Jaden Schwartz with Brandon Saad going into the lineup. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that Brandon Saad one kind of caught me by surprise. But I liked it. I just didn't see him going to where he ended up going. So I don't hate it. None of these deals really were big splashes. I don't think. I think the one deal that had potential to be a big splash and kind of shake up the NHL if he was to leave was Landeskog, and he just ended up staying in Colorado anyway. So the NHL is going to get kind of that earthquake you get in the offseason, and I think that's going to be the Eichel move. And that just hasn't happened yet. None of these signings were the biggest one was probably Dougie Hamilton going to New Jersey.
And that was a bit surprising to me. I feel like, I like it in New Jersey sense because they're sending a message to their player with all their draft picks that maybe, all right, guys, maybe it's time to turn the page and let's become a playoff team now. But I don't know. One thing I want to ask you guys about is, what's your opinion on all the Kraken signings?
I liked what they did. The guys they added up front are going to bring that scoring touch that they were lacking after the expansion draft. And they also added some more size on the back end, which I don't think they really needed, but I think that's the type of game style they're going for. And then you bring in Philip Grubauer, and that's fantastic. You got three deep goaltenders. You got Grubauer, you got Drieger, and you got the guy from Ottawa,
Joey Decourt.
Again, Joey Decourt. So that's good. Brandon, what do you think of the Kraken? They gonna win the cup?
If the evolution of new expansion teams will take that next step, then that's the case, I guess, because the first year that obviously Vegas, they went all the way. So you would imagine that the Kraken got to make a couple more moves to make that jolt, but they did add some sturdiness and then some veteran depth. And I think that since they did the draft, they always started at the root of the tree, underneath the ground with their goalies, and then they went with the solid base with big defensemen. And now they have all that money to use on forwards. So you've seen a couple additions, but there's still some names out there on the board. It's just still a couple days. I'm waiting for some decisions here, and obviously I think we all graded Seattle as one of the top tiers in terms of free agency signings and off-season acquisitions.
Yeah, for sure. Let's finish with a question, because I've been asking people this since the Olympics started, and I'd love to hear you guys answer. I give you 1 year. You got 1 year to train. Which Olympic sport, Summer Olympics, do you think you could medal in?
Baseball.
Baseball. Summer Olympics. You got 1 year to medal.
Baseball.
The Canadian basketball team. I could be off the bench. They're gonna be there soon.
You think with 1 year you could get the Canadian basketball team?
Yeah, they just missed. They were in the semifinal of the qualifier, and they have a lot young talent. Individual wise, that's just the easy route, because basketball I could get carried. However, I'd like to say even the 3-on-3 basketball looks fucking sick.
That looks sick.
Is hot dog eating a competition in the Olympics?
No, unfortunately. I would either do ribbon. If I had to win a medal, it'd be like ribbon twirling or speed walking.
Oh, I'm a mad speed walker. I could easily medal. Maybe not a gold, but silver. I'm in.
If they had a podcast contest.
Oh yeah, top three for sure. Top three for sure.
Deepest voice.
Deepest voice. I don't know. I think there's been some weird stuff coming out of the Olympics. My two favorite ones so far have been watching the people doing the triathlons and the decathlons, and they cross the finish line and then just fucking die. Like this guy in the triathlon, he finished first, crossed the line, celebrated for about 2 seconds, curled into a ball, and just threw up. Like
Oh,
I was like, oh my God, this poor man just won gold and he looks awful. And then there was a high jump competition. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. And in the high jump, these two guys, they just tied. And instead of doing a jump off, they just both agreed that, let's just both win gold. So they were like, okay, we'll share the gold medal. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Actually something that I enjoyed to see the reaction. The one man freaked out and asked for like a bear hug in the middle of the interview, and you make it sound a little bit more funny. It was kind of emotional to watch.
Yeah, but it was just something you don't really. And I think the Olympics is kind of the only sport to do that, right? Like imagine in hockey they go to Game 7 and it's Leafs and Golden Knights, and they're just like, you both want to just win it.
Yeah.
Right, like the Olympics is really the only place to kind of do that.
I mean, after all this heartbreak, I wouldn't mind just a casual, hey, let's just both be Stanley Cup champions.
I had a hockey tournament once. It was a 3-on-3 hockey tournament. And we went to triple overtime. And because the ice rental up next was waiting to come on, the referee said, okay, we're going to do one more 5-minute period. And if you guys are still tied after this, you both win. It was the final game.
Yeah.
Who won?
I think we lost.
Oh, that's a
shout out to
very bad ending to that story.
Sorry.
Simone Biles, who pulled herself out of a few Olympic events for herself due to mental health reasons, and returned to the balance beam today and captured a bronze or silver, I believe.
Bronze.
A bronze. So it looks so natural for her. I was actually lucky enough to watch it as it was happening. So obviously not Canadian, and the Canadians aren't obviously on the top of the Olympic leaderboard, but a very important story.
Well,
but speaking of Canadians,
massive shout out
to the Canadian soccer team.
Yeah, the Canadian women's soccer team beating the USA 1-0 in the semifinals. They will go on to play Australia? No, Sweden. Sweden in the gold medal game on Thursday night at 10 p.m. I will definitely be watching that because I think Canada's just going to absolutely drag Sweden through the mud in that game. And some of the quotes coming out of the USA team, like, we've never lost to Canada before. This stings so much. And then just seeing the Canadian girls celebrate, it was so good. And it's always nice when you beat USA on the worldwide platform.
And the person who scored the winning goal is from London, Ontario. So shout out London, Ontario.
Shout out London.
It was nice. Also interesting basketball Olympic news is that Luka Doncic has the potential to meet up with the USA team in the gold medal game, which would be absolutely absurd considering Luka Doncic would be 18-0 with his national country at that point if they win the next game.
Damn.
And single-handedly willing a country to a gold medal off of his back against Super Team 2 3.0. There's always super teams in the USA Olympics. They got Kevin Durant. They got Jason Tatum. They got quite the alley of players. Speaking of which, I don't know if I sent you this, but Colangelo, the gentleman who also had that burner tweet way back when for the 76ers with Harden, is he's the president, owner, and management staff with the United States team, and released a statement on Kevin Love's departure from the USA basketball team, blatantly saying that Kevin Love was the most out of shape that the USA men's basketball teams have seen him in to date, saying that he couldn't compete up in the workouts and it wasn't even solvable to have him around. And they just kind of sent him as if it was his decision to leave, or like it was really, really poor PR, especially when this article came out. And they picked up a JaVale McGee off of that. And not to say that JaVale McGee is any better than Kevin Love, but there were still some other options out there. And to say that Brian Colangelo is the most professional basketball operations mind out there would be a stretch of my imagination into Mars.
Right. All right, boys. Should we wrap it up?
Let's do it.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Orion Sportscast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Orion_Sportcast. And I think it's that. I'll put them in the link down below. Make sure you like this video, comment on it, subscribe it. Thank you for listening. And the Edmonton Oilers are full of shit.